Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. It's December 4th. We're about 3 weeks away from Christmas, and I've got my sad little leaning tree behind me. Um, we're past Thanksgiving, headed full force into Christmas, and so I just wanted to do a quick update on COVID and where we're at on a couple of things, including where we're at on a vaccine. So, with Thanksgiving, with what we expected, that there would be some groups of people getting together, sharing the virus, and we are seeing a bit of a boom in coronavirus cases around here. Hospitals are seeing an uptick in cases and more people with it. So, just a reminder, as we've done all along, keep doing what we've been doing. Socially distance, wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, wear a mask. Just can't be too careful right now. Again, same stuff we've been doing all along. We just got to keep doing it for a while longer, but especially now, headed into the cold months, headed into the holidays. We don't want to get sick. We don't want to get each other sick, which also brings up a good point. If you're feeling sick, don't come to work. So I am just as guilty as anybody in the past with trying to be the tough guy. If I get a cold, if I get sick, I try to tough it out and just come to work anyway and fight through it. This is a different scenario. This stuff we're seeing with COVID, some people don't have any symptoms at all. Some people have really mild cold symptoms, and then other people are sick on ventilators and dying. So if you're running a fever, if you're feeling achy, cough, just if you're feeling sick, don't come to work. Call in, let us know. We can figure out a way to get you tested to find out so that we keep each other healthy, keep our patients healthy. It's more important than ever. With COVID, there are allowances that are done on a nationwide scale for coverage of that to be able to still get paid for time off and the quarantine time. So details if you need that, but don't come to work sick. It doesn't help anybody out. Also wanted to talk about vaccines. So we're hearing more and more in the news about vaccines getting closer to being available, which is a really good thing because vaccines being available are going to be the big step to getting the pandemic under control and helping with immunity so that we can get life halfway back to normal. And so with vaccines, they're certainly controversial. There's always a lot of hot topics and conspiracy theories with vaccines of any type, and that's just been for a long time. If you go on the internet, you can find just as much information and misinformation about vaccines as you can anything else. And some things are a little partial truth, some things are not true at all, some things are just completely silly, and we'll get into a couple of those too. Just a little bit of the basics. This will be the super short version of how vaccines work, just so it kind of makes sense if you're not familiar with it. So what vaccines do is they trick your body into creating an immune response to whatever we're trying to target. So flu shot, for example, most of us just took the flu shot here in the last few weeks. You're injecting a vaccine to mount an immune response against the influenza virus that's been introduced. And then your immune system makes antibodies against that influenza virus. So antibodies are proteins that are like the bouncers of your immune system. They recognize virus, they recognize these particles that aren't supposed to be there, they wrap them up and they get rid of them so that you don't get sick. So what vaccines do is they trick us into thinking that we're getting infected, even though we're not getting sick, but we still make antibodies so that way the next time if you get in contact with the real influenza virus from someone, your body knows what to do. The bouncers pop up and say, nope, not today, we're not getting sick. So there are different ways that vaccines are developed to make this immune response. Some vaccines are inactivated virus. So basically they grow the virus in a lab in cell cultures, and then they kill it. They make it to where it doesn't replicate, it doesn't make you sick, it doesn't become infectious. And then they put that into a vaccine, which is injected, and then your body doesn't know the difference. It still sees the virus and says, nope, don't want you in here. We're going to create antibodies so that then later down the road, if we see the real virus that's not dead, we've got the antibodies already. Um, Another type is a live attenuated virus. So they, same thing, grow the virus in cell cultures. They modify it a little bit to where it looks the same, but it doesn't replicate. It's not active. It's just kind of a wimpy version of the virus. And when that's injected, same thing. You don't get sick from it. It doesn't infect you. It doesn't replicate, but your body still mounts the immune response and makes the antibodies towards it. If you're a giant nerd like I am, I know a lot of you are, these vaccines that are being developed for coronavirus are really pretty cool. And it's using a concept that's been developed before, but just not on this widespread type of platform. So these are what are called mRNA viruses. So we've all heard of DNA. DNA is basically our genetics. It's the what's in our cells that literally is the blueprint for who we are, what kind of proteins we make, what kind of hormones we make. DNA is the foundation for all of that. For simplified purposes, RNA is similar to DNA. It's a blueprint map that tells the cells to make certain proteins. And so what's happening currently with the coronavirus is they're using this RNA technique to make the vaccine, which should be safer and actually more effective. So it's like this. We've all seen the picture of the coronavirus. So it's a ball and it has these little spiky things coming out of the sides of it. And those are actually called spike proteins. And those spike proteins are what attach to our own cells. So you come into contact with coronavirus, gets in your nose, gets in your mouth, and then those spike proteins attach to the cells, certain receptors, infect themselves into the cells, and then the virus replicates and you get sick. So those spike proteins are what is unique to the coronavirus. Other viruses don't have that specific one. And so the theory is if we can trick the body into recognizing that spike protein, we'll create antibodies to it without actually having the virus present. So what they're doing is growing the virus in cell cultures, but then just taking little snippets of that RNA that create the spike protein that you see on the coronavirus. And so with that RNA, it's put into the vaccine, and then when it's injected, it actually tells the cells right there where the injection is at to make those little spike proteins just on some cells, so that then the antibodies are created to recognize that spike protein. So it's a way to create antibodies to coronavirus without actually having to introduce the virus into your system. You're just introducing this little snippet of that RNA. It's kind of like if I put on a Patrick Mahomes wig, it doesn't make me Patrick Mahomes, but I might look a little bit like him. Maybe enough that I could make it into the huddle for just maybe one play. Or even if I could just high-five Travis Kelce because he thought I was Patrick. Or maybe just a short piggyback ride for Tyreek. But anyway, but if I put on the Patrick Mahomes wig, I'm not really Patrick Mahomes, but I might pass for him for a little bit. I don't know. I'll have to try it. And so that's what we're doing. We're essentially introducing this RNA into our cells so that our own cells, a few of them, make these little spiky proteins, and then we make antibodies to that. So that debunks part of the myth with vaccines that I was going to mention. Some people are worried that when you're injecting a vaccine, you're actually giving somebody coronavirus in this case, or giving somebody the flu, or any number of things. It's not physically possible in this case. If you're doing the mRNA, that's not the virus. That's just a little snippet. So it's impossible to get coronavirus from having the coronavirus vaccine if they're using the mRNA technique. So the The way it looks so far, so the vaccine it's being developed by multiple companies, and right now it looks like it'll be 2 doses. So you'll get 1 dose to help start to mount the immune response, and then depending on the company, depending on the vaccine, you'll get another dose in 3 to 4 weeks, like a booster, like we got booster shots when we were kids. We'll get 2 doses of this. Side effects so far, from what we've been seeing in the vaccine trials, are kind of like you might expect with any other vaccine. It can make you achy, can make you tired, can even give you a little bit of a low-grade fever. Again, when you get those side effects after getting a vaccine, it's not because you got the infection. If you get a little bit sick after getting the flu shot, it's not because you have the flu. I know we all have you heard somebody or even ourselves thought, I got the flu shot, I got sick as a dog, and so I got the flu, so I'm never going to get it again. But the fact is what you're feeling is the immune response to that. That's what actually makes us sick. So when you get the flu or when you get coronavirus, that's not the virus that's causing sickness. It's actually our own body's immune response. It creates proteins and things that cause fever or cause achiness. So when you get a vaccine, that can be normal to get a little bit of those symptoms, but it should be really mild and much better compared to the alternative of actually having the infection. So the other concern that we're certainly hearing is this vaccine's coming out so fast. Most vaccines, when they're developed, take years, 5, 6, 7 years to develop and be tested. And so everybody's panicked saying they've just created this and it's not going to be safe, and they've cut corners and this and that so that we don't know what we're actually going to be getting. But it's not true at all. The FDA is still involved. There still are quality guidelines. There still are all the things that normally have to be done to develop and approve a vaccine are still being done with the coronavirus vaccine. The quick version is that involves preclinical trials where they essentially use animal models to make sure the vaccine is safe and doesn't cause problems. Then that moves into a phase 1 trial, which are very limited amount of human volunteers to agree to the vaccine, and then they follow them mainly just to make sure it's safe. Moves into phase 2 trials where then they start looking at, is it effective? So is it not only safe, but is it working? And then once they pass the phase 2, then it moves into phase 3, which is more widespread use of the vaccine, where they're still tracking safety and effectiveness. So so far, we've heard some about the Pfizer vaccine, which is an RNA virus, and in the phase trials that have happened so far, 95% effective in mounting the immune response and keeping people from getting the coronavirus, and safe. No major issues, concerns, other than just the typical side effects in a certain percentage of people. And that's, I think I read 6% are having some of those mild side effects that I mentioned before. So they're still going through the phases to get things approved. They're not cutting corners. They're not doing anything to make the vaccine less safe than it would be. It's just being done a lot quicker with the Operation Warp Speed that we've heard about. And I kind of equate it to this. Normally if you're building a house and you've got your contractor, it takes a long time because they've got to put up the framework, and then they've got to put in the plumbing, and they've got to put in the electrical, and it's a stepwise process because money is spent at certain steps along the way. Everybody's got to do their job. Well, what happened with the coronavirus is the whole world, essentially, a lot of countries got together to put money into developing the COVID vaccine. So these companies are all working quickly and working together. So it's like the home makeover show, how it's different with a house. You've got same house being built, except you've got 100 people working on it at once, and it gets built in 3 days rather than 6 months. So it's the same type of thing. They still have to meet certain qualifications and guidelines and safety checks so that then when the vaccine comes to us, it's already gone through those things. So it looks like it's going to come to us sooner rather than later. Don't really know details yet. Healthcare workers will most likely be first. I know the HCA system has already said they should be getting some vaccine in the next 2 to 3 weeks, to start with some of the hospital personnel. And so that's soon. And then it begs the question, well, why can't everybody just get it at once? And certainly there are issues with being able to produce and develop the vaccine fast enough. And then there's some storage issues with these mRNA vaccines. They have to be kept cold. So all those things still have to be in place before it's made widespread. And so it'll be a slow release, which isn't a bad thing, but I anticipate that healthcare workers will be the first